There we go. That's so much better. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2-Minute Emergency. I am Dr. Leslie, your board-certified emergency physician and professional photographer, and I am here to educate you on emergency conditions and to remind you always to keep safety in mind. So I'm going to wait a few minutes as I wait for people to come in and join me. I know that fall is here and we are all facing a lot of changes as the weather is changing. Matter of fact, where I am right now, if you can believe it, it is 88 degrees. I am here in Texas. So a little bit different from where it is in other parts of the country, I realize, but I'm enjoying every minute of this last minute heat wave. So I am here today to teach you a little bit about, believe it or not, food poisoning. Now, food poisoning, people come to the emergency department all the time saying, I think I just have food poisoning. Well, how do you know? That's a very good question. So there are many different causes of food poisoning. The most common, believe it or not, is something called norovirus. Most people haven't heard about norovirus. They think of the classic salmonella. The other things people think about is E. coli, because those are the things that make the news most often. Now, norovirus is relatively self-limiting, as is food poisoning in general. And I say it in general because I'm going to tell you a little bit about some times when it's not. So I'm here on Instagram as well as Facebook. So if you see me moving my head back and forth, I'm trying to adjust to both. So salmonella is actually, while it's not the most common, it's the one that does cause the most hospitalizations in the US. Now, of the different hospitalizations, there are roughly, or actually people who even visit the emergency department or suffer from food poisoning in the first place, there are roughly 1 in 6 Americans have some type of foodborne illness each year. Can you believe it's that much? It really is. Now, of those, about 128,000 go to the emergency department or require hospitalization. So it is relatively common. And I will get to some ways that you can avoid that. Hi, Tiffany, welcome. Thank you for joining me here. So some of the signs and symptoms of food poisoning. Well, the abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, of course, diarrhea, all a big part. Now, when do we start to get concerned? The biggest thing we worry about, whether it's pediatric patients, adults, geriatric patients, is diarrhea. Not only the diarrhea, but the electrolyte imbalances. In other words, your body chemistry that can change as a result and cause you major problems. So if this happens, you definitely need to seek emergency care or medical attention in general. Now, every time people have a little bit of diarrhea, they run to the emergency department. Not always necessary. Now, keep in mind, I am not speaking about individuals. I'm giving generalizations. So please, if you feel concerned, do seek medical attention. But there are some times in which you don't want to go directly to the emergency department because it's not necessary. If you're not vomiting and you're still able to drink plenty of fluids, you can usually stay home and treat this at home. If you start to see things like blood in your diarrhea, that is a problem. Just like if you start to have fevers. Now, fever can happen with some food poisoning, definitely, but if it's a continuing fever, one that you can't control. Hi, Joy. Thank you so much for joining us. So when you start to see the diarrhea with blood in it, when you start to have a fever, real concern. Now, when you have the diarrhea, but don't necessarily have the fever and you're not feeling all that bad, you're able to drink fluids, that's a time too, believe it or not, you don't want to start off right away taking something to slow down the diarrhea. Most of the time it's self-limiting, believe it or not. So a day, it's uncomfortable, we hate it, you can't do your normal routine, understand, but doesn't necessarily require that you go to the emergency department. After 3 days, if you're still having diarrhea, you're still having fever, medical attention is necessary because you may need some antibiotics to take care of it. Remember I said that food poisoning can be caused by many different factors. So it can be a bacteria, it can also be a virus. You're not going to know, you're not going to be able to tell the difference at home, but if it's continued, very important to know. Hi, Dr. Monique, thanks for joining me. So, as I said before, the big things you worry about is dehydration and changes in your electrolyte balance. All right. Now, there are some patients, obviously, that are going to have it worse. Small children, for example, you don't want them to become dehydrated. They don't tolerate it as well as older people and most adults. So be very, very careful when it comes to that. Now, what can you do to prevent food poisoning? Well, that one is relatively easy. So one of the best things is hygiene, proper hygiene, washing your hands, washing your foods. Yes, your fruits, your vegetables, all those need to be washed before you prepare them. Think about it. They came from a field. You don't know what contaminants were in the field, what animals, anything like that are a possibility. So avoid that. The other thing is your food, make sure that you cook it thoroughly. Make sure that if it's a food that needs to be refrigerated, keep it refrigerated. The same thing if it's a food that's supposed to be served hot, keep it hot. You can't leave something out. Everyone knows about those picnics that you have during the summer in which you leave something like egg salad or macaroni salad that's got mayonnaise in it out too long. People are going to get sick. So make sure that you keep things properly refrigerated, and if they're supposed to be hot, keep them at their proper temperature. So last but not least, you want to avoid what's called cross-contamination. So when you're preparing your food, you don't cut up your chicken or your meat and then cut up vegetables in that same area. You're cooking them at different temperatures, and you don't want to cause illness because whatever that item was that was cross-contaminated did not get to the same temperature. Meat, obviously, is going to take a lot more heat than your vegetables, or a lot longer period to finish cooking. So if you put your vegetables and cut them up with the meat, and you're only searing them for a short period of time, you could possibly become ill. So I hope you enjoyed these tips, and I hope you remember once again to keep safety in mind. Once again, I am Dr. Leslie, your board-certified emergency physician and professional photographer. And you can find me on all social media at Dr. Leslie Sharp. Until next time, which is actually, I'll be right back here on Thursday. Once again, the same time, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I look forward to seeing you here. Take care and stay safe.